while everything was going great, I was working as a data engineer, working on a lot of cloud technologies like AWS, Azure, Databricks, Snowflake. I think वो aspects से I learned a lot being in the US. Most of my mentors were in the US itself. I had a couple of people who were working from India, so that way the team was structured between India and US. And I think I got to learn and implement a lot on my day-to-day job role. And visa also was not a problem. I was waiting for my H1B to get approved. It was picked in the lottery, and I had my OPT valid until 2027. So even with OPT, I still could have technically continued for a year. But the thing that made me come back is that I tried to study how the job market in India was like. And जैसे अपन US जाते हैं, अपन 1-2 महीने लेके जाते हैं कि it's a new country completely and अपने लिए बिल्कुल नया है. You should have the same mindset while moving to India कि it is a new complete country completely and आपको 1-2 महीने लगेंगे to settle down. There are a lot of things which actually come into picture when you're seriously thinking about moving back to India. There is your professional life, there is your personal life, there is your visa, whatever your situation is, and then there's obviously an emotional factor to it.
Hey everyone, तो आज हमारे साथ है मेरे माय ओल्ड फ्रेंड इन यूएस जहाँ पे हम लोग मिले थे. ही इज़ वरुण काबरा एंड आई नो हिम फ्रॉम अ लॉन्ग टाइम. आई मीन ऑलमोस्ट आई थिंक इट्स बिन 5-6 years that we met in a musical thing, not in a professional setup. पर I invited him in this discussion that we wanted to have in a podcast today because he has a unique story. क्योंकि मैंने देखा उनका LinkedIn पे पढ़ा that he has decided to go back to India. I mean he was here in US, he was doing pretty well, that's what I heard. और उसके बाद मैंने देखा कि यार even after all the things he had, what everyone dreams about, he decided that नहीं यार अभी बहुत हो गया, I want to go back to India, that is what I want to be. So I thought why not have that discussion. So welcome Varun, thanks for joining in this call.
Thank you Yogesh. Thank you so much for the warm introduction. And like Yogesh said, हम दोनों की meeting was very unique because we didn't meet in a professional setup. It was actually in a musical event जहाँ पे हम मिले थे. And we've been friends since then. Like he said, it's been about 5 years. And I'm really glad to be a part of his circle, be connected with him. So yeah, looking forward to this meeting with you.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and as we were getting started, it's always great, right? Like because we already know कि भाई क्या बात करनी है and what has happened, rather than talking with someone we don't know. So I'm very much excited to talk about this because मतलब मैं अंदर की चीजें पूछ सकता हूँ तुमको कि यार ये क्यों किया था, क्या नहीं किया था. नहीं तो एक ऐसे प्रोफेशनल सेटअप में हो जाता है कि हाँ ऊपर से बात करते हैं. आज हम लोग होते हैं सरफेस लेवल पे बात करने की जरूरत नहीं. We can go in detail what was your thinking and why you decided to take that decision. So just to get started with, can you tell about your background, like just a little bit of your background and what you did when you were doing when you were in India and then when you came to US, like briefly, so that everyone knows कि भाई हम किन से बात कर रहे हैं and what you have achieved so far.
Sure, I will try to keep it as short as possible. So I was actually doing my bachelor's in India. I graduated with a degree in comp science in 2021 from Manipal. उसके बाद I joined Unilever. मैंने Unilever के साथ about 1 year and 2 months work किया. And while I was working with Unilever, that is when I decided कि ठीक है, I want to pursue my master's in data science. And that's essentially when I started applying to my colleges in the US. I had applied to about 10 to 12 colleges in US between 2021 and 2022 early. And then I started getting admits in the start of 2022. So that's when I decided to come to US. 2022 September is when I started my master's at Northeastern University. वो साल मैंने वहाँ पे master's किया and I graduated in May 2024. Then after that, I worked with a startup for 1 year, and after working for a startup, I joined a company which specialized in BFSI sector. I worked with them for a year, and during my work experience and college life, I switched multiple cities. I stayed in California for some time. I then moved to Dallas for some time, and then, as you all know, very recently I've made the move back to home. That's India. So 2024 to 2026 is when I was doing my work in US. I was fortunate to work with various companies. And then after 2 years of work experience is when I made my mind to come back to India. Very mindful choice, given that I still had my STEM OPT for a year and I had my H1B picked. I was just waiting for its approval. So even though I had all of these things going on in the background, I made the decision to come back to India. And now here I am. It's been about 2 months and I'm trying to stay in India.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for that background. And as you talked about it, California, Texas, and now going back to India, and such a big circle. And then when you were in that circle in California, जब हम मिले थे in a musical setup. So I'm glad that I got to meet you during that your journey that was happening at the time. So when you talked about कि India में थे and then you started applying in the US and then you got a lot of admits from the colleges. What was your thinking at the time? जब मतलब तुम सोच रहे थे कि यार मुझे अभी US में जाना है, and then what was your thinking at the time कि मैं US जाऊँगा and then I will try to achieve something for I will learn, take some experience and go back. Was that your thinking all the time, or you were thinking कि नहीं मैं US जाऊँगा and I will see how it goes? Like what was your thinking at the time when you were trying to come to US?
So this is actually a very interesting question क्योंकि when I was in my college, this is in bachelor's, मैंने मेरी जो पूरी प्रोफाइल बनाई थी, I had made it thinking कि मैं MBA करूँगा in the future. And it was nowhere in the picture. All the 4 years when I was doing my bachelor's, I thought ठीक है, I'll want to take some work experience and then do an MBA. But this changed the minute I graduated and started working for Unilever. So when I was working with them, I worked on some data science projects, data transformation projects, cloud projects. And during my work experience with Unilever, that is when I decided, okay, this is the field that I want to be in. Tech is the domain which I want to specialize in. And that is exactly when I started applying for masters in the US. And while I was applying, I was still very hesitant because my family se dur raha tha. I was away when I was doing my bachelor's in Manipal and the family was in Hyderabad. But this was a very big move for me. I never thought ki I would be going to US. I had that in mind ki theek hai, masters karna hai, specialization karna hai, and I was exploring options. And while my work experience, when I explored options, US stood out for me compared to all the other countries, including India. And that's when I thought, theek hai, let's apply and see where it goes. And I applied. It took about 4 to 5 months, as we all know. That's the amount of time which it takes to build your profile, build your SOPs, get the LORs, essays. So 4 to 5 months, मैंने मेहनत करी, GRE, IELTS, I gave all the examinations possible, and then that's when I applied to US, thinking, ठीक है, let's see what happens. And then I had this in mind, कि once I go to US, I will take some work experience and come back to India. So that mindset was there since the start, because I'm someone who likes being close to the family. Since I think I'm more of an emotional person, and mainly being close to family is very important. So I had this in mind, कि ठीक है, I'll go there, study, get some work experience, and return to India. So that's the mindset with which even I was applying to the universities in the US.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think a lot of people they don't open up like this, right? They always think कि इंडिया जाएंगे, पर मतलब बहुत कम लोग take that decision कि यार हम लोग US में गए, and then they say I will go after 2 years, I will go after 5 years. I mean, I have seen this for a lot of people, and then that day never comes. They're always here, 10 years, 20 years after I get married, after I have my kids, but that day never comes. But I think you're glad that you took that decision of okay, I'm emotional, this is what is good for me, and then you kind of pre-decided actually doing that. So when you came to US professionally as well, you had all these things, and there must be few things in your mind that this is what I am looking for when I'm coming to US. Did US meet your expectations, like kind of what you had dreamed of, or what you were thinking about when you are going to reach US? जो सोच रहे थे कि यार मैं US में जाऊँगा तो ये चीज़ें मेरे दिमाग में हैं. Do you think when you actually landed in US and when you were kind of being here at the time, did US meet your expectations?
I think US met my expectations and also succeeded my expectations. I would still say that US is a land of opportunities. When you know your path, the way you navigate forward. जो मैं सोच के आया था कि US ऐसा होगा, US वैसा होगा, I was a bit scared because मेरा कोई connection नहीं था in US. I didn't have anyone. Luckily, there was one family friend of mine who had helped me settle down in US. I'm always grateful to them because अगर वो नहीं होते तो शायद settle होना US में might not have been that easy for me. They are also based in San Jose. So I still remember the first night in US when I landed. My lease was starting the next day, and I didn't have a place to stay in the US because I think in US and even in all the countries you go to, they're very strict when it comes to the lease agreement. They would give you the lease only when it starts and not before that.
Right.
So I still had to figure out where I would stay for a day. That is when I was a bit tensed. But luckily, my family friend, they helped me out through that. I stayed with them one night when I landed in US, and then they took me to my accommodation and then made sure that it was all good to go. My lease agreement, they checked that multiple times and made sure that I was settled wherever I had taken the lease in San Jose. So I definitely feel that it was a very different experience. You come up with something, and then every day in US is something new. It's a learning. For me, every day was a learning in US. When I was a student, when I was working, her then I was challenged with something new. So I would say that if you know how to navigate through these problems, then it's a land of opportunities for you. मैं जिस expectation से आया था, it definitely exceeded that. The student life, the work life balance that's there in US, it is all amazing. And I still sometimes miss the fact that I was in US, I was having such a great life, and then now I'm back to India. So I do miss US a lot of times, but then there is some trade-off of being in US and being in India. So it's upon you कि आप किससे comfortable हो, किससे okay हो. But yeah, I think US experience was amazing, and it did exceed all of my expectations. And if given a chance to come in future, I would love to come back.
Yeah, you're always welcome to come in California. We are always waiting for you. So you touched upon a lot of things, right? Like your student life, the work-life balance that you had here. बहुत सारी चीजें जो a lot of things that you were experienced here. A lot of experiences, learning every day that you talked about. The music के बारे में हमने बात किया, like extracurricular activities that we used to have here. What aspects of life here in US do you think you enjoyed the most? Like this is something that I wish if I had this in India, this would have been great. But that is one thing that you feel that this is the one that I really enjoyed when I was in US.
So I have slightly different take on this. I think I really enjoy things which challenge me. So पहले तो student life itself was a very big challenge because I remember जो Indian grocery store था, it was about 45 minutes via train, and then we had to walk a mile to go to the store and come back a mile with all the bags to the train station. So while it was extremely tough to do that because we had to change multiple trains in the middle, VTAs as we know in California, and then go to Patel Brothers or any Indian grocery store. I think while it was extremely challenging, it was also fun because we all used to go in a group together. हम लोग 4 या 5 लोग थे, all of us, me and my friend circle, we used to go together for grocery shopping. That's the aspect which I enjoyed a lot in US. That not just that, this is just an example, but such situations make you come out of your comfort zone. Such situations which challenge you, they force you to do things by yourself, they make you independent. And I think that is what I really liked about US, that it makes you extremely independent. So whatever problem you're facing there, you're all by yourself and you have to figure things out by yourself. That's one thing which I really enjoyed a lot. And the second thing which I enjoyed, like I said, the work-life balance. I wouldn't say I had a very fixed time slot like 9 to 5 and I was done, but I still felt that the work hours, the work-life balance there is amazing. Even the time I had for myself, and I really like going to the lakes. So when I was in Dallas, there was a lake very close by to my home, and I used to just go walk there for about an hour and a half. So that's the thing which I really liked about being in US, that the time that's there after work, it's all yours and you can do whatever you want to. So I do miss that part in India. I think in India somewhat that timing is not very flexible. So these are a couple of things that it forces you to become independent. It forces you to come out of your comfort zone, and then obviously there is this balance between work and life that you can do. So these are the aspects which I really like about being in the US.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks for sharing that, and I think I can relate with you. I also have a lake close by where I typically try to go have a quiet time when I go there. So yeah, I think work-life balance is something again that we like. So ये इतनी अच्छी चीजें मतलब थी वहाँ पे कि ये सही चल रहा है, ये सही चल रहा है. A lot of things that we have here that you like, you are really enjoying. At that point, did you think that you would settle permanently in US? Like इतना सही चीजें हैं यहाँ पे, मतलब ये probably मुझे इंडिया में जाऊँगा तो probably I will not get this, but these are available here directly. So was there a moment or time that you thought I may permanently settle in US?
Definitely. I mean, there was a moment. So like I said, I was a student and then I transitioned to a corporate person. So the student life थी versus जो corporate person की life थी. I saw things, I struggled with things, and then I got things at my comfort. पहले मैं बस से जाता था grocery stores 40-45 minutes. Then I moved to Dallas. I used to go by a car. So all these experiences were extremely rewarding for me. Just to have that change when you had to go for 40-45 minutes, उसकी जगह 10-15 minutes लगते थे. When you get to experience that everything from scratch, I think वो experience बहुत ही ज़्यादा rewarding था for me, and it gave me a sense of freedom, a sense of independence, which I may or may not have had in India. So there was a time when I thought, ठीक है, maybe अपन थोड़ा सा postpone कर सकते हैं. We can stay for another 5-10 years and then go back to India. There definitely was a time when I enjoyed the US lifestyle, and then I stopped missing my family so much, stopped missing my relatives so much, because I had my own social circle when I was in US. So I tried spending more and more time with them, and then they became my family. So when you are in such a situation where your friends become your family, it becomes a bit easier to navigate your life in the US. And then I think there was definitely a time that मुझे लगा था कि हाँ, I can be here for more time, maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years. So definitely that thought did come somewhere when I was doing my work and I was working as a corporate.
Yeah, I think मतलब वो जो रहता है ना कि यहाँ पे रहे इंडिया में जाए वापस, it's always like I've been here for more than a decade now, मतलब इतने साल हो गए, but then it's always that fascination, like should we go or should we not? So it's like always that thing which is there. So ये सब सही चल रहा है यूएस में, मतलब अभी हमने देखा कि यार यू आर हियर, यू वेंट थ्रू द स्टूडेंट लाइफ, वो जो स्ट्रगल था यू ट्राई टू पुश थ्रू दैट, यू रियली एंजॉयड दैट, देन यू मूव टू कॉर्पोरेट, एंड देन आई थिंक यू टॉक्ड अबाउट व्हेन यू मूव टू कॉर्पोरेट योर वीजा थिंग दैट आल्सो गॉट अप्रूव्ड एंड एवरीथिंग. कैन यू काइंड ऑफ गिव अ ब्रीफ? आई नो वी टच्ड अपॉन इट एट द स्टार्ट, बट कैन यू गिव अ ब्रीफ और at the moment when you had decided to go back, what was your setup, like you're working as in data science domain, but like what exactly you're working at and kind of company, and with the visa status which was there, so that everyone who is watching this would know कि यार मतलब ऐसे नहीं कि कुछ प्रॉब्लम आ गया इसलिए वापस जाना पड़ा, they would know exactly what your situation was and what made you make that decision.
So I think while everything was going great, I was working as a data engineer, working on a lot of cloud technologies like AWS, Azure, Databricks, Snowflake. I think वो aspect से I learned a lot being in the US. Most of my mentors were in the US itself. I had a couple of people who were working from India, so that way the thing was structured between India and US. And I think I got to learn and implement a lot on my day-to-day job role. And visa also was not a problem. I was waiting for my H1B to get approved. It was picked in the lottery, and I had my OPT valid until 2027. So even with OPT, I still could have technically continued for a year. But the thing that made me come back is that I tried to study how the job market in India was like. And I kept reading a lot of articles based on GCCs that are being set up in India. There were a lot of companies who were setting up their global capability centers in India, specifically in Hyderabad and Bangalore and Pune and Mumbai. So I did see that there is a surge of AI/ML roles in India, Gen AI, LLM-based roles in India. And while my project was great at the company where I was working in Dallas, I still feel that I had to upskill in AI, Gen AI, and LLM, because I feel abhi is market mein currently these are the tech stack and the tools that are trending. And I tried applying to a lot of companies in the US, but वहाँ पे जो मुझे issue आ रहा था was that a lot of companies, they either wanted you to be a green card holder, or once they check that you're on OPT, then your chances become slightly lower than the candidate pool who do have H1Bs approved already or who are already citizens of the US. So वो मुझे issue आ रहा था. Like whenever I had my screening calls with the recruiter, they first asked me कि मेरा visa status क्या था. The moment I told them that I'm waiting for H1B approval, it's been picked, and I'm on my OPT, they would immediately just say कि oh, you just have about a year and a half on OPT, and that might not be enough for us to continue. So मुझे वो issue US में आ रहा था, and while I would love to be in the US, I thought ठीक है, let's explore the market in India. क्योंकि with a lot of GCCs coming up in India, I thought maybe they are also thinking something, and that is what is interesting them to move to India. So that is why I thought let's explore the Indian market. And then once I started updating my preferences, I noticed that a lot of people were interested, specifically if you're specializing in Gen AI, LLM, RAG, and LLM ops. Your profile is ideally to get picked up for an interview in India. And India, there was no visa situation, nothing. So the interview getting back to you rate became a lot more when I applied to the job market in India.
Yeah. Thanks for that, detailed explanation. I think one thing that comes to mind when you are telling about this is it's very tough to kind of be in US and apply and do the interviews in India because time difference रहते हैं, expectations are different because not a lot of people would be doing this, right? So how was your experience, or if you can throw a light, कैसे था when you're applying and doing interviews? I think must be late nights and all that. Look, can you just share a few things कि उसमें कैसे था?
Definitely. So what I noticed with Indian market is that it's quite different the way they approach candidates than US. Normally they tend to call you on your phone numbers directly and then schedule interviews via that. Versus in US, they would probably send you an email. We've been screening applicants and your profile has been shortlisted for interviews. So वो एक key differentiating factor था between the India and US market, that the mode of communication for them was through a phone call. So I made sure कि मैंने मेरा international roaming valid किया उस year के लिए, and I started updating my everything, the international roaming for Indian number on LinkedIn. I put this open to work banner, and the locations which I highlighted was in India, Hyderabad, Bangalore, while being in the US. So whenever a recruiter called me, whenever let's say I applied for a job opening on the career website, I would get called by a recruiter, and then I would tell them that I am in the US, but I'm willing to relocate in India, and then let's take this forward. So that used to be my conversation. I kept everything transparent that I am in the US and I'm going to move back to India, and I'm ready to interview at whatever time slot works for you. And then they would sort of schedule the interview, the first round of interview, and that used to be in the India's afternoon time, which is US late night. And since I was based out of Dallas, it used to be 2:30, 2 a.m. for me.
Wow.
So I used to set alarms. I used to get a power nap between 1:30, 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock, and then I used to start giving my interviews in the night. And then I used to catch up on my sleep after my interview. So I gave interviews during my nights, and I was basically working during my daytime. So making like a full 24-hour cycle.
Wow.
मैं सुबह से लेके शाम तक रात से लेके मॉर्निंग तक इंटरव्यूज देता था.
Yeah, I think I can just imagine, and that's why I think it is so difficult. ज़्यादा लोग ये इसलिए नहीं कर पाते क्योंकि it's not as easy as finding a job where you are located. मतलब if you are in US and then you are applying and having the interviews and you are doing it while working is even that is tough. Having time slot and doing the interviews. पर अगर different time zone में है, रात को I can imagine कि रात 2-2:30 बजे interview, and then it's not like you are just putting your camera off and कि भाई हाँ अभी बात कर रहे. You should be totally alert and all that. So it's I think a lot of struggle must have gone through that, and I can imagine. So anyone who is watching, I think if you are trying to do this, like trying to a different country, especially like we are talking about US to India, here Varun has given exact kind of blueprint. What should you do in LinkedIn? What should you be doing, and how you should be approaching, because it takes a lot of effort. So thanks for sharing that. And the other thing I had was a lot of people, जब मैं उनसे बात करता हूँ, they typically try not to go back, saying कि पैसे बहुत कम मिलते हैं यार, इंडिया में अगर जाएंगे तो यहाँ पे अच्छे खासे डॉलर में पैसे मिल रहे हैं, करेंसी देखो कितनी अच्छी है. So if I am earning here, I can support my family in India as well. Even if the market is bad, the earning is not too bad when you are in US. So when you are doing this, we would have first-hand real experience. So how was your experience when you are having those salary negotiations, or how did you find the market?
I think that's definitely there. जब आप US से काम कर रहे होते हो, you do get paid in dollars, and then if you convert that to INR, there is a huge salary difference which you would see for the people at your level working in India versus working in US. Also because of the purchasing power parity, the Indian market tries to adjust your salary based on what the Indian norms are. So definitely it's not equivalent to what you would earn in US. But जब आप अपना experience बताते हो कि you are based out of US and you've been working in the US, obviously they don't directly convert your US salary to INR and then that level of compensation to you, but they would adjust based on what your experience level is, based on how much you've worked in the industry, how much knowledge you have, and then they would give a comparative offer even in India. I would say different companies have different approaches. Some companies are extremely fixated on their compensation and wouldn't go higher than that, but a lot of GCCs which are being set up, they do offer very competitive pay, especially if you're in the field of AI, ML and Gen AI. I think the need of the hour are Gen AI engineers, data scientists who specialize in LLMs and quant fields. So if you have some work experience in Gen AI, LLM, you can definitely negotiate your salary. You can not tell them कि मेरा US का इतना salary है and उसका equivalent इतना इंडिया में बनता है. You have to understand that you would suffer a pay cut. You would have to go down probably 40%, probably 50% for your compensation to be in India. And I think that's the right approach to keep in mind कि ठीक है, you need to be prepared कि आपका salary थोड़ा सा lower हो सकता है between US and India. And then with that approach, if you go and approach the Indian markets, I think you will be at a lot of peace
Yeah, and looking at you, I think you are at peace, and you have made the right decision. Looking at you. So when you're making that decision, यहाँ पे when you decided that now I'm going to go back. I've started interviewing. I will start doing that. मतलब तुम्हारे जो दोस्त थे, colleagues थे, and all those people around you, did they think that what was their reaction? Like, did they think, yeah, you are making a mistake? Everything is set here. Why you are planning to go back? Or you tried to keep a low key and not share too much with other folks? Or like, how was that? Your the colleagues or friends or anyone who was here in US? What was their reaction at the time?
I think at the time when I was applying, I kept it very low key because I myself was not sure that it would all pan out and I would finally end up going back to India. So I didn't really talk about it to everyone because I felt मैं जितना share करता उतना मैं ही confused होता. I tried sharing it with a couple of people. So India में थे वो बोल रहे थे, boss, why are you coming back to India when you have such a great lifestyle in US and you're doing well there. And so US में थे वो obviously बोल रहे थे कि why go back to India, again the same thing when you're all settled. So I try to keep it low key, not tell a lot of people because that would end up me confusing myself. So I kept my approach to myself. I thought that, okay, once everything finalizes, that is when I'll probably tell everyone that, okay, I've done this and this and this is what I've decided. So then that way there's no going back from there. No one can tell you that, oh, why go back, or no one can put that confusion in your mind. So that was my approach when I navigated myself.
Yeah, I think that is the right way to go about it. नहीं तो और extra हो जाएगा कि क्यों ऐसे कर रहे हैं यार, मतलब सब सही तो चल रहा है. And then I think you touched upon it about family being a big part of taking that decision. How was their kind of what kind of discussions you had with them? Like were they thinking कि यार ठीक है, मतलब we are here, if you want you can come back, or if it is good for your profession you stay there for a couple of years more, because that's what I typically have those discussions, or कि भाई थोड़े और दिन रहना है तो रह लीजिए, कोई problem नहीं, हम इधर ही है. So when you're making that decision or having those discussions with your family, how was that going at the time?
I think one good thing about family is that they would never discourage you on whatever you decide upon. So there were days when I said, "Okay, मुझे नहीं आना, I'll just continue in US," and they were like, "Okay, fine, no worries. You're big enough to figure out, and we will support you in whatever you decide to do." Then there were days when I was like, "नहीं, मुझे सब छोड़ के वापस India आना," and then they're like, "Okay, fine, that's totally up to you. Even if you come back to India, we are here. We'll figure out something." So I feel that no matter what you decide upon, your family will always support you. If you would decide to be in the US, they'll be like, "Okay, you can be in the US for a few years and then continue." And then if you decide to come back to India, they'll be like, "Okay, we are fine with that as well." So I had these discussions with my family, and like you pretty much said, they did encourage me to be in the US for a while, at least for a couple of years, and then come back to India. But then when I told them what I was thinking and why I was thinking I need to come back to India, I felt that they were pretty much aligned with what I was thinking, and then it was a joint decision of them and me to come back to India. So they supported me. They supported me throughout the entire process. They were like, whatever you need from us, we are ready to help you out. In terms of settling down, in terms of getting referrals, they were all very positive about me moving back to India because for them, I was moving closer to them. So I felt that they always kept me in that confidence. Ki whatever I decide to take, they are with me, even if it's US or if it's India. They would be ready to support me in whatever I decide. And that is exactly what happened. I finally made my mind to come back to India, and then they were all ready with that. Ki, now let's plan your move back to India.
What were the things you had to do? Like now you have got the job India में है, now you have decided you are going back, but there are a lot of things that you have been here for so many years कि ये बंद करना पड़ेगा, ये लीज का देखना पड़ेगा, कंपनी को बताना पड़ेगा. There are a lot of things. So what are the things that you had to go through when you are actually like last couple of days or last couple of months, like just to get that out? So if you can share something on that.
Definitely. I think a couple of things that you have to keep in mind. Ek to your lease. I think you need to, if you're trying to exit US, you have to make sure that you either transfer it in someone else's name. The process for that is pretty straightforward. You can talk to the leasing office and they issue a form wherein you, and if there's any flatmate of yours, both of you sign, and then they remove you as the owner or the co-owner on the lease, and then they add the new person on the lease. So that's a very important thing, which I think everyone needs to keep in mind when they sort of make the transition from US to India. Ki jo bhi hai, go by the process. Transfer your lease in someone else's name, or whoever is trying to come at your place, find a replacement for yourself, and make sure that the lease is transferred in his name or her name. So ek to lease ka that aspect is that ki aapko, you need to make sure ki the lease is being transferred properly. Fortunately for me, in my case, my lease was ending in April end, and I was flying to India in the first week of April. So I made sure that I had that conversation with leasing office ki I'm moving back to India and the lease is ending on 29th of April. So will be any issue if if I'm still on the lease, because it's just about 3 weeks of time, to kuch issue to nahi hoga. I spoke to the leasing office, told them about my move, and they took it very positively. They're like, that's not an issue. The check of deposit that we had given to them at the beginning of our lease, they would essentially issue that to the other person who was on the lease. So I made sure that that all fell through properly. It came up well, and it was all done through the process by the way it was supposed to be done. To lease, I did it that way. I checked what I could do with my bank accounts if I'm not in the US. So I tried to close anything which was non-compliant of me being in India, and I made sure that I closed the bank accounts who would not support international people to open up their banks with them, their accounts with them. So I made sure that my bank account wise as well, I checked कि कौन कौन से banks हैं जो कि मुझे allow नहीं करेंगे from India, and I closed whatever accounts were possible. Credit cards I still have kept open because most of my credit cards have this thing wherein you pay a $0 fee to maintain them. So I thought I can still maintain them for a couple of months just in case there are some subscriptions which go through them. I will maintain that for a couple of months and then close them out later on. So I'm planning to close my credit cards as well by the next couple of months. But since they are on $0 annual fee, I still have them open for a while. I did have a car in Dallas, which I made sure to sell it beforehand. So 2-3 days before my move, I made sure that my car was gone as well. There are different stores where you can go to inquire about your rates and sell your car. EcoPark, there is also CarMax. So I made sure that I went again through the process because I was also new to selling the car for the first time. So I made sure that whatever is the trusted place, go there and then get your sale done. So I had to sell my car. मेरे सारे जो equipments वगैरह थे, the setup in my room. Essentially, I had to either give it off away to my roommate or dump it. So most of the things I made sure that they were at the right place. I gave it to anyone who needed it, and then there were some things I just dumped because I had to clean up my room and give it in a clean space back to the leasing office. So I made sure that all of my area was clean. In terms of documentation, I had to inform my DSO about my move, and I had to fill up a form on the Northeastern's OGS portal, which essentially did that transition from US back to India, and then I had to inform them as well. So I wrote an email to my DSO, made sure that I kept him in loop about my move, updated my employment status on SEVP portal. And these are the things which I did a couple of days before my move to India from US. So I made sure that I was compliant with everything that's there. I kept my DSO informed. I maintained my status on SEVP, clearly indicated when was my last date. I sold off or gave it to my friends or dumped everything which I had. And I informed the leasing office as well about my move. And in terms of car, I sold that as well. So these are some things which I did before my move.
These are not just something that कितनी सारी चीजें करनी पड़ती है. Like anyone who is thinking, or I have not gone through this, but like जो भी जाने की वापस सोच रहा है, it is not कि भाई वहाँ पे जॉब लग गई और तुमने बैग लिया और वापस चले गए. It is not that easy. There are so many things, जैसे अभी हमको वरुण बता रहे हैं कि there are a lot of things that you have to go through, and then after all that, like even now, like कुछ credit cards है, then I have to close that. It's not like a quick thing कि भाई यहाँ पे आया और वहाँ पे चले गए. So yeah, thanks for sharing that, and I definitely wanted to ask that because it feels very easy कि यार US में यार बोर हो रहा है, चलो इंडिया जाएंगे. It's not that easy. It's like huge decision that you take. And one question I think I should have asked before, but one question I had was, you had worked in India, but you had education in India. You had your bachelor's in India, and then you worked in Northeastern here doing your masters. Was there any difference in the education setup that you found? कि भाई इंडिया में जब when I was doing my studies, काफी बार लोग ये बोलते हैं कि इंडिया का जो एजुकेशन सिस्टम, अभी तो नीट वगैरह का बहुत सारा ये न्यूज़ भी चल रहा है, पर इन इंडिया काफी लोग बोलते हैं कि it is not kind of application based. It's not just exam है, पढ़ाई कर लो and then you go. But in US it is more application based. It helps people grow, the students grow. So what was your own experience of when you were in India studying and then when you came to US? क्या difference लगा तुमको?
I think differences तो definitely है when you study in India versus when you study in USA. India की पढ़ाई के अपने benefits हैं, US की पढ़ाई के अपने benefits हैं. Technically, I felt कि both India and US technically they're very deep. But in terms of practical applications, I think Indian colleges are great. वो भी आपको practical applications के लिए बहुत सारे projects build करने को motivate करते हैं. But I feel that the push you get in US is a lot more in India. The practical applications which you build during your master's course, I felt I personally had put in more amount of efforts in building that application because I feel I was evaluated more strictly based on how the application worked and the practical applicability of it. Versus in India, I think theoretically I was tested more rather than my practical application. So that difference I could definitely see between India and US. I think Indian universities are great when it comes to theory. Practical applications, I feel it completely depends on you based on how you want to take it ahead. But in US, you are forced to practically apply the skills which you have learned. So that was one of the key differences which I faced between education system in India and US.
Yeah, coming back now to where we were, I think ये question मेरा पहले था that I should have asked. But you packed your bags, ये सब चीजें हो गई, सब wrap up कर लिया, इंडिया में जाने का decide किया, and then you reached India. You would have talked with your friends here and told your friends, अभी आ रहा हूँ मैं वापस, your family and everyone. How were initial few days? Like, if you can describe that feeling, कि भाई इंडिया में अभी गए after so much time, and then like actually you were there, like you would have thought about it and all that, but like actually when you went there and then like started working or just meeting your old friends and जो जगह रहती है हम जहाँ पे रहते हैं, our house, our own bed, all that stuff. So how was that feeling and how was that experience initially when you kind of went back to India?
So for me, I think the best thing which happened is that the moment I landed, I had my cousin's wedding to attend. So I came from US back to India, took about a week to get over my jet lag, and then I had to go to my hometown to attend my cousin's wedding. So I think that is where I interacted with a lot of people. I caught up with my relatives, I caught up with my cousins, and that sort of helped me settle down back in India. I would say if I had come back to my city, I would have missed the 6 experience of settling down. But because I was in a wedding, the setup was completely different. I was in my hometown for about 3 weeks, and this was the time when I was also serving my notice period. So in terms of workload, I did have to give my deliverables, but I was not pressurized on picking up new things because I had given them my last working day. So I just had to finish off my knowledge transfer sessions, made sure that I transferred my responsibilities to different team members properly, and I would say the load was not that much. The load in terms of work had decreased, and I had more time to give in the wedding preparations, all of that. So it was a mixed feeling. The first 1 week when I came back, I actually was thinking if it's the right decision or not. But when I was close to relatives, when I was close to family, I told myself this is something which I was missing in US, and this was one of the main reasons why I came back to India, to be a part of this festivity, the celebrations. And I think वो पूरी wedding की preparation, the entire wedding helped me settle back in India. And after that, when I came back to where I'm working currently, I'm now pretty much settled in the Indian culture. I'm settled with everything that's in India, and I'm happy to come back.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And I think that is one thing we always miss here in US, right? Like your relatives and all that. जो शादी होती है, then we go there and meeting everyone. That is the feeling that can never be described, and that we never get when you are outside India. So thanks for sharing that. So when you went back, right? I think after a couple of years, you have been here for a long time. When I go, like sometimes it happens कि मैं 5 साल बाद जा रहा हूँ, 6 साल बाद जा रहा हूँ. I always am surprised sometimes. Like last time when I went, I saw the Mumbai airport was like such a great. It has developed so much. It feels like you're in San Francisco somewhere. Like it feels so different. So I was pleasantly surprised, like it has grown so much. A lot of other things like like UPI and all that stuff, like digital thing that has happened, but that happens with me because I don't visit often in India. But with you, like when you visited, were you pleasantly surprised, or anything that pleasantly surprised with good things or bad things as well, but like anything that you felt like this is what I was expecting, but suddenly ये क्या देख लिया मैंने, ये तो मतलब अच्छा बुरा जो भी है. तो if you remember any of that experience, I would be happy to know, because a lot of times what happens is we are in the same place, जैसे लोग इंडिया में है और इंडिया में ही रहे, तो we don't understand what is different, but when you are outside for some years and then उसके बाद हम जाते हैं अरे बाप रे ये क्या है. So I just wanted to know how was your feeling and what if you remember that any of those incidences.
Definitely. I think I've had great experiences so far, and I would say there were some not so good experiences as well. I would say overall the experience has been a mix, but on the better side. So जब मैं US में था, I realized one thing कि when I came back, I saw a lot of new roads, a lot of new buildings. So construction, I think बहुत ज़्यादा हुआ था when I was in US. So all these long time when I was in the US, I felt when I came back, when I was driving on the Indian road, I could actually see the new constructions that happened while I was in the US. So in terms of infrastructure, I think it increased by a lot. जब मैं US में था versus when I came back now, I could see the difference. A lot of buildings, a lot of new roads were constructed. Traffic was regulated in a much better way now. So I definitely feel in terms of infrastructure, it increased a lot. And in terms of the bad thing, I feel while traffic still is a problem in India, I still think that people are trying to work in it. The traffic policies are trying to navigate that in a better way, mitigate that. So I still feel that the traffic has grown a lot by the time I was in US. जब मैं पहले इंडिया में था, I used to drive very frequently. It used to be very easy for me to drive and go to my work. But I feel now it's become a lot more difficult, mainly because the traffic has gone a lot more than 2020 to now. So I definitely feel in 6 years, while traffic has gone up, infrastructure has also become better. I feel a lot of new buildings have come up, a lot of new projects have come up, residential, non-residential, workplaces. I see so much construction happening, and I feel that, to me personally, where I stay, so I'm in Hyderabad, and Hyderabad resonates a lot like Dallas. So जैसे Dallas में infrastructure था, I still feel that Hyderabad's infrastructure is very close to the infrastructure in Dallas. So I do feel कि some cities like Hyderabad, Bangalore and Mumbai, like you said, they do offer you these premium infrastructures which you see in US. So definitely I feel कि ठीक है, it's not too far from US, even though we are in India, and if we are in cities like Hyderabad, Bangalore or Mumbai or Delhi, we would still feel कि ठीक है, we are at par with US, not too far. So
yeah, I think anyone who is watching would be so happy to hear कि यार मतलब Hyderabad is almost at par with what you had in Texas. So I think almost all of them would be very happy to hear that, because that's what everyone compares. I think thanks for sharing that. I also feel many times about that. One question I had was like anything that comes to mind when you went back to India. Like we talked about, you were able to attend the marriage and with the relatives and everything. कि बहुत अच्छा लगा उनके साथ. But now, as you are there in India, is there a thing that you feel like this is the best thing that has happened because I'm in India? Like ये तो मुझे US में मिलता ही नहीं था. This is the best thing that is happening. I know you talked about your family or all that, but you can touch upon anything that you want. But like there are a lot of people who are in US, जैसे हम लोग बात कर रहे थे, or not only in US, like in Australia, UK, Canada, like a lot of countries who always think of going back, but ऐसा लगता है कि वो कितना मतलब खराब था वो टाइम पे, पोल्यूशन एंड लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स लाइक क्राउड एंड ऑल दैट वी टॉक्ड अबाउट, ट्रैफिक वी टॉक्ड अबाउट. बट एज यू मेंशन कि अभी चीजें चेंज हुई है, मतलब वी हैव दैट माइंड कि 10 साल पहले क्या था, 5 साल पहले कैसे था, अभी इट हैज चेंज. So the good part, like when you went back, now what you feel like, this is the best thing I'm getting here in India.
think जो obviously पहले issues आ रहे थे, infrastructure problems might have been there a long time back, but I feel now that issue is completely gone. I wouldn't say completely gone, but yeah, to some extent it's reduced by a lot of margin. तो जो infrastructure का issue था, I think at least personally, people like me who live in cities like Bangalore, Hyderabad, Mumbai, and all the cities like that, I don't think we would have such an issue कि ऐसा infrastructure हमें इंडिया में नहीं मिल रहा है. I think the second ease which every Indian would relate to is the quick commerce. So you need anything, you just Zepto it, Blinkit करा लो, it will be at your doorstep in about 20-25 minutes at max. This is something which I was missing in the US क्योंकि अगर मुझे कुछ भी चाहिए था, I used to go to a store which was 10 minutes drive from my place and actually go buy it from the store and then come back. But अभी अगर मुझे कुछ भी चाहिए in India, I just Zepto it and it's at my doorstep in 20-25 minutes. I definitely feel quick commerce is one thing which is better in India, and I feel that the restaurants being open up late in the night, like until 2 a.m., 3 a.m., that's a blessing because I'm someone who goes out after my work and becomes late by the time I leave home to catch up with my friends. In US, typically I felt that a lot of restaurants, a lot of tea spots, coffee places close by 10:30, 11 o'clock at max. But यहाँ पे मैं देख रहा हूँ कि the nightlife is still amazing. Even after 12 a.m., you can catch up with your friend at a coffee spot, in a cafe. They're all open late in the night. So these couple of things definitely I feel कि I was missing in US. वहाँ पे it was all amazing, but I felt that ये थोड़ा जो social life था after 12 a.m. And the quick commerce part, this was not still there in US. There is Instacart and all, but I feel that also has some thresholds, like you have to order above $50 to get a free delivery, things like that. But in India, it's more convenient. You get it in 20-25 minutes, and yeah, these are the two things which I feel ठीक है, big relief in India.
Yeah. So if someone is like trying to have party life after 12 and all that, what you're saying is you have to go back to India after 12 a.m. if you have to do anything. तो जो भी लोग देख रहे हैं जिनको लग रहा है कि यार मुझे इंडिया जाना है पर मुझे यहाँ पे यूएस में बोर हो रहा है, यूके कनाडा जहाँ पे भी आपको लग रहा है मुझे बोर हो रहा है, नाइट लाइफ कुछ है ही नहीं यहाँ पे, तो अभी वरुण जी बता रहे हैं हमको कि भाई इंडिया चले जाना, वहाँ पे बहुत सही चल रहा है. Someone like me, or I know a lot of people like me who are outside of India, been so long that we have been outside India कि काफी बार ऐसे हमको अगर बोलते हैं इंडिया में ऐसे तो हमको मालूम ही नहीं रहता कि क्या चल रहा है. तो if they are considering returning to India, like they are thinking for a long time, but they are considering returning to India. Because you have gone through the process and we have talked at length about it, what do you think they should think about? Like what are the things they should think of? Like you talked about your professional life, your personal life, the things that made you decide. But if anyone is thinking on those lines, like यार मुझे जाना है, but they are not able to take that actual decision because I think very less people actually take that decision. What do you think are key things that they should think about before making that decision? Because there are incidences in which people have said that मैं गया था इंडिया में वहाँ पे किया, but I was not able to adjust. My family was not able to adjust. My kids were not able to adjust, or work culture I was not able to do it, and they were trying to come back again. So they are like नहीं यार यहाँ पे जो चल रहा है यहीं सही है, वहां पे अगर ऐसे लगा तो क्या होगा. So if they don't want to get into that trap and they are worried of taking that decision because you have successfully taken that decision, what do you think you can advise them and what they should think of very carefully before making that decision?
I think there are a lot of things which actually come into picture when you're seriously thinking about moving back to India. There is your professional life, there is your personal life, there is your visa, whatever your situation is, and then there's obviously an emotional factor to it. So these are the factors which everyone should look at. Obviously, I think mindset here matters a lot. You should be ready for some unexpected challenges which come when you move back to India. Now that you have built your entire life in US, it's as good as you moving first time to US when you were settled in India. So पहले जैसे US में difficulty आती है, you come up with some challenges. जब आप इंडिया से US move कर रहे होते हो, you should be prepared कि आपको ऐसे challenges फिर से देखने को मिलेंगे when you move from US to India, because now you're more adjusted to the US lifestyle, and when you go back to India, there will be some surprises which you may or may not like when you come back to India. So I guess you should have that mindset कि ठीक है, now I've made the decision, whatever happens, it's okay, we will handle it. तो एक तो वो mindset का you need to be positive with your mindset कि whatever happens we'll deal with it. There are some things, कुछ trade-offs हैं of being in India. But एक चीज जो मैंने करी थी before I moved from US to India is that I jotted down my experience in a Word doc. It was about 12 pages long, summing up my entire life in US. And then when I was moving to India, मैंने ये पूरा note down किया था. And then I basically had some reasons जो मैंने list करे थे to move back to India. And then one short essay which I thought I will read while boarding the flight to India to remind me why I made the decision to move from US to India. तो मैंने पूरा मेरा experience उसको note down किया ना doc format. And when I was boarding the flight to India, I opened that, read it again, and that final essay of why I moved from US to India. And then that reminded me कि ठीक है, these are the reasons, and I am going to be happy with the move that I'm going to make from US to India. So ये तो हो गया your emotional and mental aspect of it. Now in terms of job opportunities, like I said, these are some things which you have to do beforehand before moving to India. A lot of people, what they do is they will move back to India and then they'll start looking for jobs in India, and then they'll say कि it's becoming difficult. So to not put yourself in that situation, I would say कि start researching from US itself. जब आप US में हो तभी से आप jobs में apply करना चालू करो. Build your profile on websites like Naukri.com, have it updated there, and then recruiters would reach out to you directly on your phone numbers. So try to secure jobs while you are in US and when you're planning the move. That way you will not have that pressure कि इंडिया में जाके क्या करना है. You will have something to look forward to in terms of career, in terms of job. So start looking for jobs when you are in the US and when you're transitioning to India, and see how the market is responding to your application. If you think you need some more time, take the time for preparing your application and then applying to job a couple of months later, and then you can postpone your move or time your move that way accordingly. Then I think, of course, my main reason was also the social life which I was missing in US. I had a good friend circle in San Jose and Dallas, everywhere that I went to, but I still feel that family is family. You were missing out on your family while being in US. They can come to US for sure, but then they are getting old, and life is about spending time with them, supporting them, and them supporting you. So for me, family was also an important aspect. I moved back to home, moved back to India. I think you just need to be ready that a lot of things would be new. And जैसे अपन US जाते हैं, अपन 1-2 महीने लेके जाते हैं कि it's a new country completely, and अपने लिए बिल्कुल नया है. You should have the same mindset while moving to India कि it is a new complete country completely, and आपको 1-2 महीने लगेंगे to settle down. So come with that mindset, think positive, and universe will only resonate positive things with you if you think positive. So positive सोचो, come with the right mindset. Don't be like कि क्यों आया मैं, and कभी अगर आपको लगे कि क्यों आया मैं, तो go back to your document जो आप लिखोगे मेरी तरह, and then see the reasons why you came back to India, and then you'll feel much relieved.
But previously it was not there, but like just from your experience when you went back कि भाई दोस्त थे उनके दिमाग में कुछ मिसकंसेप्शन है कि तुमको बताना पड़ा नहीं भाई ऐसे नहीं रहता, यहाँ वहाँ पे भी यही प्रॉब्लम्स है.
I think जैसा आपने बोला था, right now with Instagram, everything has become extremely known to people. So a lot of people, they share their journeys in US. I see a lot of influencers जिनकी reels में they actually tell you कि हमारा monthly income ये है, but after taxes so and so, after rent so and so. So they actually tell you what their income is post taxes, and then they'll tell you where their income goes, कहाँ जो भी expenditure होते हैं. So right now I think people are becoming more aware कि ठीक है, while you earn that sort of money, your expense is also a lot more than what it might be in India. So I think the awareness is becoming a lot more nowadays because of Instagram. People do know कि वहाँ पे क्या situation है versus India. And I think मेरे friend circle में भी किसी को ये issue नहीं आया था wherein people had this misconception that you're earning so much, you're saving so much. Pretty much everyone knew कि अगर आप इतना earn कर रहे हो, यहाँ पे इतना tax लगता है, taxes के बाद you get so and so, and then your expenses are so and so. So your final savings are pretty much this much. So वो idea now I feel people लगाने लगे हैं. There are a lot of podcasts also which are happening similar to one which we are doing, that a lot of people do, which creates that awareness amongst people. So I feel that now the young generation is more informed, and they know कि ठीक है क्या situation है, कैसा क्या है.
Yeah, I think, and this is good because if I can share about my experience before, like I think when I went back, like 8-10 years back, if I had visited people, लोग बोलते थे यार वहाँ पे इंडियन खाना कैसे मिलता है, वहाँ पे मतलब तुमको तो इंडियन खाना मिलता ही नहीं रहेगा, but बहुत सारी चीजें थी. But now as you said, like all the social media and reels and all that, people are pretty aware, which is good. Otherwise ऐसे लगता था कि भाई मतलब जब एयरपोर्ट पे गए ना, वहाँ से वो लोग पैसे मांगने चालू कर देते थे कि यार तुम तो इतने पैसे कमा के आए हो, दो हमको थोड़े से. But yeah, I think this is good that you shared, and that has changed. So how long have you been a couple of months now, like how long have you been?
I came here in April. I have been here for about 2 months and couple of weeks.
2 months and couple of weeks. So I know your kind of experience would change, like initial couple of months, after a year maybe we'll have different discussion probably. But looking back now, like looking back today, say if you had to make that decision of going back, when you're doing that, and you must, as you mentioned, keep both lambi process ready, you had to plan all. So if you had to make that decision again, do you think you would make the same decision again of going back, or do you think you would think more, or you would think on these lines a little more, or do you think no, I made the exact what I wanted, I have made the exact decision that I wanted, and I'm pretty happy with it?
I think there is a famous saying that you only know the story when you connect the dots backwards. So yes. जब मैं if I go back and if I think कि क्या सही decision है, क्या मैंने सही plan out किया है, I think there were a lot of factors which impacted my decision. Firstly, it was I wanted to have job security before moving to India. तो अगर मुझे job security नहीं मिलती while I was applying from US, I would probably take some more time to be in the US, continue my work experience there, to see कि कहाँ मुझे upskill करने का need है. Then I would upskill myself, position myself as per the current requirement in India, and then I would start applying to a lot of companies, the process which we do. So that was a major driving factor for me. अगर मुझे पीछे देखना हो, if I make the right decision, अभी तो मुझे लग रहा है because I have that job security with me and I'm close to my family, I feel that it is personally a right decision for me to make. मेरा जो भी work experience था US में, I'm trying to learn from that and then sort of implement that in my day-to-day work culture in India. So मुझे लग रहा है कि for me, I think it was a good decision because I had that job security. I came with a clarity in mind that this is what I wanted to do. This is the field which I wanted to pivot in, and I was fortunate to get a role in that field. So that was one of the major factors which influenced my decision. अगर उसका timeline आगे पीछे होता, I would have taken more time to come back to India, or less time depending on whatever it was the case.
Yeah. And as you know, we are trying to wrap this up now. I think I initially talked about, we met in a musical event, and for everyone who is watching, he's a very good singer. Varun is a very good singer. If you are ready, you can sing, or we'll make you sing in some future podcast that we'll do. But he's a very good singer, and I have good fortune of hearing him, and we have been connected since. I would like to hear you more, but because you are not here, I will try to make you sing, because I know I am putting you on spot here, but I will make you sing in some future podcast or something, so that you can prepare well. But yeah, anyone watching, if you want, just share that in the comments or somewhere. But I can assure that he's a very good singer. So the last thing that I had after we have discussed at length, I really appreciate all the discussion that we had, and the insights that you have shared. If you could have, if you would like to share one message, because most of my audience is kind of in a younger generation, like in their 20s. Many times they talk about they are studying and they are stuck. So any one message that you would give to your younger self, when you had just completed your engineering, or you had just completed, or you had just landed in US, because you have just gone through that recently. For me, it is long back. But if what that and those people are watching, right, they are thinking, should I go out and do go to US? But then they would see that, oh, he has went and he has come back, so I'm happy here. And there are a lot of things, different podcasts and different things that come in. So if you have to go back to your younger self, or anyone who is younger and thinking of 18, 19, 20, 21 years, and they're thinking, what should I do? What would that advice be, and what is one message that you would like to give them?
I think there are a lot of things which I would like to tell them, but I'll try to sum it up in one message. So I would say, life is pretty big. There will be places where you will make mistakes. It is okay to make mistakes, because when you make mistakes, you know how to approach a problem, how not to approach a problem next time. So try to make more and more mistakes. Try to learn from them. Don't be harsh on yourself if you make some mistakes in life. Growing up, you will make a lot of mistakes. Just learn from them, and try to be a better version of yourself, day by day, week by week, year by year. Don't think I made a wrong decision, I made a wrong choice by coming to US. There will be times where you will be missing your family, you will be all alone by yourself, you will feel lonely, and you will doubt your decision of whatever you do coming to US. You will have situations जब आपको लगेगा कि क्या ये decision सही है. तो कभी भी वो doubt आए, just try to be positive, try to motivate yourself, remind yourself कि आप क्यों US आए हो, and what your goal is out of coming to US. You will make mistakes. Remind yourself it is okay to make mistakes. Learn from them and try to become a better version of yourself day by day. So this is the thing which I would try to tell everyone listening to this podcast.
Yeah, what a great inspiration. I think you are a great inspiration for anyone who is watching. I think you have talked about mistakes. A lot of people actually ask me, right, that I'm worried to take action. What would happen? Ki mera galat ho gaya, to if I fail, what would happen? And I do overthinking and all that. If you have that mindset the way you are talking about, making mistakes and learning from that, I think it's easier said than done. But you are kind of an inspiration, because you have talked at length about it. So I really enjoyed this discussion with you. A lot of things that we discussed, and I really appreciate for anyone who is watching, because he's in India and I'm in US, that's why I'm a little dark, with the light and everything, and he's looking, but he's shining as well in his life. So that is showing in his background and on his face in general. So really enjoyed, really appreciate you spending time with us and everyone who is watching. And we are really hoping to look at your journey, how you fare in India, and hopefully we'll touch with you probably after a year or 2 years down the line sometime, and see how we'll look back and see how your decision was, and we'll talk about it at that time.
Thank you so much, Yogesh. I really like the work that you're doing. It makes people more and more aware about US, India, the situations in both the countries. So it's really inspiring to see your journey and how you motivate others.
Yeah, thank you so much, and see you soon, as I mentioned. And next time when we meet, we'll make you sing a song for sure. So be prepared.
I'll come prepared for that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.